Hi guys, and welcome to this video in my PowerShell series where we are gonna learn about PowerShell. And the last video we went through the basics, how you get commands and different commands that can help you get started in PowerShell, and the most important ones to know about. In this course, we're going to go through all the, not every variable there is, but all the important variables that you're going to use 90% of the time. So without further ado, let's start. What we have here, we have the first is ordinary variables, right? These are like any other programming language if you have tried to program in Java or in I'm not sure if it may vary from variable to variable. Like Python doesn't use dollar sign. A lot of languages do use dollar sign. So yeah, this is just a basic variable. So let's go ahead and see what kind of types there is. Sorry. So we have assigned a string to this ordinary variable, and we can say variable period get type to get what type of variable it is, and we can say it's a string. If you now run it in an integer mode or assign an integer, you can see it's an integer, int 32. And if we assign two variables, so you can assign multiple strings in one variable. You have to have double quotes or single quotes, and you need a comma to separate them. And if we do that and check the type now, it's an object. What is an object? So an object is something that you have multiple items in. So if we say brackets and 0, what we're going to get is the first object. If we say 1, we're going to get 1, and so on. So if we had multiple strings in here, everyone is assigned from 0 and up, so you can fetch different things in a variable. All right, so this is also a multi-line variable or a basic variable, but we can also format it as a multi-line. So if we run this, let's just clear that, and if we now run this variable, we can see you have two items in there. If you do it like this, there is other ways to do it as well. You can use parentheses or change the quotes to parentheses. Then you have to use quotes around each line in that field. And we're gonna go to static variables. These are the same as ordinary, but you're gonna use global column. So this is the variable, but you're gonna put global and column before the variable name instead of just the dollar sign. What this does is make it available across different scripts or available in different functions. So, sorry. So if you have two functions and you declare a variable in one function, you may not access that variable in the other functions. So global just spans that accessibility through the whole session of your PowerShell session. So if we say ordinary variable, so what we did, we assigned, let's just do this. We assigned static var the ordinary var. So if we run get type, we see object same as that one was, but it's accessible to other functions as well. Now we can see array variables. these are created in different ways. You have this way to do it, you have this way to do it, and also this way. All these ways of doing it are equally good. It's no difference in it. So let's just run all of those. Get type. Let me fix that. Let's see, adding is empty. We're gonna go through all of these. So what we have, all of them are array lists, as you can see. It doesn't matter how you create the array list for the object. If we run, let's run the first one. Oh, sorry, I see an error here. 2, 3. Let's actually, just for the tidiness of it, let's run it again. Array list, so now we have the correct ones. And now we can run one array. We can see that it contains John and Doe. So here, all we've done, we created the array list variable, and then we say period add, and add this variable here. So if I say add, for example, world, we can say add that, and we can run the variable again. Now we see we have hello world. The thing with arrays is that once you add something, it just takes that string or integer and adds it to itself. So you will continue to add stuff in here. You can also remove stuff with period remove and whatever you want to remove, right? So let's move on to the next thing, and that is hash tables. So let me just clear this up. Let's just run hash tables. All right, so what we can see here is maybe we get the type here. Okay, so we can see it's hash tables. Actually, let's just run these first and run the hash table. And what we can see here is we can see that it has first name, or the first name and last name like this, because we put in two items here, objects. So a hash table, what it is it's containing a key and a value pair. So anytime you want to add something, it has a key and a value pair that you have to add if you want to use it. That covers basically most of the variables that we're going to use, or you're going to use in PowerShell. Most of the variables are static or ordinary variables, like hash tables and arrays can be nice to have. I personally haven't used it in many of my scripts, at least. So when we move further down the list, we have not a regular variable at all. This is PowerShell's own variable. You can't use this to anything else than what it's supposed to be used for, and that is errors. So what you can use the variable for is to do some error handling in your scripts. And if we run this, let's run it and see what happens. Okay, so we have the last error message that we got, and the last error message was basically we forgot to have anything in add. So there you can see what it was. When I use 0 here, this is the last error. This is the last error message. If we I'm not sure if we can do anything more with it. Maybe we can say select first. I'm not sure. Yeah, so that's all of it. If you don't use 0, you get a bunch of old error message in that session, PSS session. So what you can use it for is fetching errors and say if this error occurs in a try catch function, then you can instead of throwing like this error for the error, you can say, okay, if it contains something like this, throw an error, write host something else. To clear all the errors in this variable, just type error period clear and parentheses, just run it. So if we run it now, there won't be anything in it. So that covers most of the variables, and we're gonna take a look at a demo which I have written here. If you guys want me to write the demo or write on the go instead of pre-writing scripts, I can do that if that's more helpful. But this is pre-written, and what I've done here, as we saw earlier, I have a list of several domains. The difference here is what I talked about. Instead of quotes, we are using parentheses, and that means you have to have single or double quotes around every line that you put in there. The good thing with this is if you use the variables like this, if you wanna say, hey, I want to just have this and then I want to do something with this, it doesn't work. This just kind of merges these together as one object. So you have to do some splitting on lines and stuff like that to operate on that. And we're gonna do that in the script down here. So if this looks intimidating, don't be. It's a very simple script and nothing fancy yet. So let's. Oh, I think I did something else. let's run this script and see what happens. Okay. All right, so it didn't work the way I was intending it to do. But that doesn't matter. What this does is it should be pinging 1 and 1, but what it did here, first iteration, let's take a look at the script. Oh, let's take a look at the script. And the first iteration, what it did, assigning the list into another one variable, so you can assign content in one variable to another variable, and then you say or create an array list. I called it URL array. You can call it whatever. Then you pipe for. If you don't know what piping is, it basically forwards anything from the first command to something else on the other side. So in this in this example, we are forwarding all these three domains to a loop, which is a for each loop, and we are adding each and one domain to this array we just created. Void, don't matter about void, it's not important, but void is just saying that any outputs that come from this command, suppress it. That's basically all it does. So if you say a list or whatever, and then you say void before a command, any output will be suppressed. The reason is, well, for each time you add something to an array, you will get some numbers 0 to 1 and so on. That will be output. Then we take the URL array we created up here with all these 3 domains in it now and pipe it to another loop. And the first loop, we had 3 objects. So what it did, destination Yahoo, destination Google, and YouTube, right? So we go down here, we see that we remove the first object, yahoo.com. So when it goes through the iterations and tries to ping the host again, it goes straight to Google, then YouTube, and it stops there. So Yahoo is gone. We removed Yahoo. Next time we do the same. We remove the last or the first object, and the first object now in this array is Google. So when it tries to do the same operation, it only pings YouTube, I mean, because we have removed the 2 domains previous in this loop. So it's just a demonstration of how or what you can do with the loops and arrays and remove and add and so on. So you can do a lot of the dynamic stuff with these variables. So what I've done, it's not sure that any of these are available right now. I took connections from, let me just clear this. The next thing is a script that I wrote to get DNS names, host names for IP. So what it does, we don't mind this. These are functions. We're going to go through functions and advanced functions later. This is a part of a functional workflow, but it's not important. The first thing we do is create a variable with an operation, and that is 20 tags or lines, tag lines. So we say for one tag line or this string tag line, and add it with 20, and that just puts 20 of these inside this, so we have a line. So if we run this, we can just run it by itself and see what it does. So that there you get 20 like tag lines. IP list. So we are creating an IP list here. Then, because we are using the same thing as the first variable here, and this is treated as one single object, we need to do some operation to split each line into a single object. So I'm saying IP list is list and split it on new lines. So now we have the variable IP list with each one as a single object. We create an IP array, we create a result array, and a failed result hash table. So we have all of the different variables we can use in here in this script. What it does here is, again, pipe each of the IP addresses from the array IP, or actually the list, sorry, from the IP list there into a loop. And it does add each of them into the IP array. It clears the host, the screen here, and here we have sort of output formation. So I'm creating a header, which is basically putting a line over whatever's output. Then I output resolving ... and a line below. You could do it like this, but I have used semicolon, which is basically next line. So when the code runs, it just first runs this, and then it runs this, and then it runs this. So you can have multiple strings or commands on one single line, but executed differently. And you can also use double end signs. It's the same thing almost, but this runs without saying that this operation has to run first and then this and then this. If the first or if one operation fails before the next, it won't run the rest of it. It's not important here because it's basically no operations. Then we have a function. So the function is called outParse. It's basically how I want to output the format. You can call the function whatever you want. But if we want to get picky, you should use the which we were talking about. We should use the verb noun, and verb noun is like we have verb and we have noun, and you can get verbs to get like whatever commands are allowed in PowerShell, but you can use anything, but it's not the best practice. So what we're gonna do here is write output to the screen result, and then we're gonna do a whole bunch of things. We're gonna pipe this to select and select just name and name host. And outstring is if you have any formatting of that output and you want to output it further, you want to output it as a string and not an object. And then we're gonna write each result in a green color. Because we're using Visual Studio Code, it doesn't do that, but it's not important. Same goes for the failed IP, but here we have, again, don't mind this. This is just a way for me to change, as we saw with the hash table here, if you can run that. You see name and value. Instead of having it like name and value, I rename those headers as IP address and result instead. So you will have a IP address, result, and basically what we do is outputting whatever it is in this array list, failed result hash table, sorry. So we have the operation here while IP array is not null or empty, do something. This is completely useless, to be honest. I just did it to throw in some operations to remove each item or the first item for each loop. Because we have for each loop inside the while, it does say for each, it does the same operation basically, but reversed. So for each IP address in IP list, do something, and that is basically resolve the DNS name for that IP address. And this is a try catch. We're not going to go into that. We're gonna look at all of these things. So we're resolving the IP address, and we put the result of that into the results array. If it fails to resolve the DNS name, it puts it in the failed result hash table with the IP address as the first, like this, first object, and failed as the last value. And it also prints out DNS name. DNS name does not exist for, and the IP address. And then it deletes the first object in the IP array for every round. And once there is no IP left, the loop quits. And this, of course, also quits because it's already looped through everything. Here we have a cleanup, which is basically writing we are done, sleep for 2 seconds, and then clear any outputs. And we're gonna use the function. So we are calling the function outParse, and we are clearing any variables. So we are starting fresh. So let's run this. Let's run this script and see what happens. It starts, it outputs resolving with the lines, and it resolved the first one. Second one, it couldn't resolve. Third one, it could resolve. So this is just like a live feed of what happens while the scan or while the operation is doing its thing. And when it's done, it's gonna pause for 2 seconds and clear the screen and show us the results. So here we have it. Oh, it actually did print out everything in the color. So we have a result, and we got the name and the name host. So this is the result of resolved DNS name. It's not key or value like here. It looks the same because of the output is it is 2 objects that we fetched. And here you have failed IPs, and all of these failed. So this is a simple script. I did it a little bit more complicated than it had to be, but it's just a display of how you can use everything like simple variables to. We didn't use static variables in this one, but we will gonna have to use it in the next video, where we will be looking at functions, and we're gonna create some functions and take a look at some advanced functions and so on, and create our own script with it. So that's it for this video. If you have any questions or any suggestions to future videos, please leave a comment below, and see you in the next one.